All right, I hit record, so it should be on pretty soon. All right, we're good to go.
Good. The regular meeting of the Dinkytown Special Service District Advisory Board will now begin. Good morning. My name is Michael McLaughlin. I will be facilitating this meeting of the Dinkytown Special Service District Advisory Board. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. I will now call this meeting to order and call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum. Board members, when I call your name, please indicate if you are present. Jeff Ashland.
Present.
Brian Deppie.
Here.
Mark Edwards.
Present.
Lynn Nyman.
Present.
Very good. I will note that I'm also joined by Andrew Carlson and David Bauer of the City of Minneapolis Public Works Department. There being a quorum of advisory board members present, we will proceed. Good morning, everyone. The first couple of items on the agenda are the adoption of the draft agenda and the minutes to the prior meeting, which was July 9th of 2020. If desired, the advisory board may adopt the agenda and the draft minutes in one action item. A proposed agenda was included in the meeting packet and was posted to the city's website in advance of the meeting. Are there any modifications to the proposed agenda or the draft minutes? If not, would someone like to make a motion to approve both the proposed agenda and the draft minutes? Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve of the minutes.
Very good. Jeff, is there a second?
I second it, Lynn.
And thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the proposed agenda and the draft minutes? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Board members, when I call your name, please indicate how you would like to be recorded as voted. Jeff Ashland.
Yay.
Brian Deppie.
Yay.
Mark Edwards.
Yay.
And Lynn Nyman.
Yeah.
Very good. The agenda to the meeting has been approved, as have the minutes to the prior meeting. With that, we will move to our public comment period. I will note that we have been joined by several members of the public who are local business community representatives. No obligation to address the board, but we do have 15 minutes on the agenda for public comment period if any of the guests that have joined us would like to address the board. Okay. Going once, going twice. Very good. We will close the public comment period. Next, we have our discussion items. The first discussion item is the 2020 annual report. We wanted to spend just a couple of minutes going through that. It was included in your packet, and I will share my screen in just a moment. There we go. So again, this was included. 2020 annual report was included in the packet and has been posted to the city website. We just wanted to hit a few highlights. It's a 4-page document. The first page is just meant to be a general overview, provide an overview of the advisory board. I'll spend just a couple of minutes talking about the summary of services. So sidewalk snow services, we did have 56.4 inches of total snow accumulation for the year. This included the early part of the year, January through May, and the latter part of the year, October through December. Tree lighting, we did install tree lighting on approximately 78 trees in November and maintained both the tree lighting and the electrical system throughout the year, in your case, to minimize the downtime of any lighting. We do swap the lighting out in August and put new lighting up. At least that's been the traditional cadence for approximately the next 12 months. And the cost also included all of the utility expenses, which are separately invoiced to the district. I'm just going through this quickly, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to let me know. On the litter management, so the services again included emptying the public trash receptacles performing the spring and fall district-wide cleanups, as well as the manual pan and broom services. The results were just under 68,000 cubic feet of trash were removed from the district main trash receptacles. We did adjust the trash service frequency as needed based on increased and decreased pedestrian activity in the district. So that result reflects that. The pan and broom service was provided 36 times, January through December. So as you can see, an average of 3 times a month over the course of the year, resulting in approximately almost another 900 cubic feet of trash removed from the district. There were also, again, the seasonal cleanups provided in April and November to really do more in-depth cleaning of the district. Street pole banners, no services were recommended by the advisory board. The street pole banners were removed several years ago by request and recommendation from the advisory board, but that is a line item in your budget. And then under streetscape maintenance and repair, the removal of graffiti. This includes the removal of graffiti and posters from the public right of way. Again, this is not private property, but the public realm. So light poles, traffic service cabinets, things like that. We also watered any young boulevard trees and repaired and replaced any streetscape fixtures as need be. That resulted in 676 instances of graffiti that were abated over the course of the year. And we watered the 15 trees 15 times with 15 gallons of water, which is a lot of 15s for a growing season. But to try to make sure those young trees are able to get established. There were a few minor streetscape repairs, including replacing missing lids for trash receptacles, and we periodically go through and remove any obviously abandoned bicycles that are still attached to any public right-of-way. Excuse me. Moving on to the financials, year-end financials. So the revised budget, the budget was $196,000. We actually spent $174,718 of that. So there was a surplus. Again, you have two components to your service charges. So the bulk of that was in your Part 1 service charges, and the remaining of that surplus was in your Part 2 service charges. So again, a total of what is the math? I'll scroll down here. It was $22,000. I think $21,282. Excuse me. And then the final page here is the map of the district. Just to go back to financials. So in keeping with past practice and recommendations from the advisory board, that surplus was carried forward to 2021 and amended into your 2021 budget. So those dollars and resources are available to spend in this calendar year from surplus funds at the end of last calendar year. And you'll see that this amended amount reflected in your 2021 budget in just a moment. Any questions on the annual report? This is not an action item. But I can pause if any board members have any questions. All right, we'll keep moving then. The next agenda item is the 2021 work plan and implementation. Wanted to hit a couple of highlights here. So let me zoom out just so you can see the full screen. Again, this was in the packet. So you see your original budget, you see the amended budget. So those two surplus amounts are reflected as revenue line items up here. So the amended budget for this calendar year is $217,282. For placeholder purposes, we put those line items in the allocated them to the sidewalk snow services line item for the Part 1 charges, and Part 2 was allocated to the tree lighting. But please know that we do have some flexibility if those dollars are needed in any of these other line items. So again, your amended budget was $217,282. We'll kind of from here, unless there's questions specifically about the financials, but the work plan, with the businesses reopening, we certainly have been increasing, paying attention to the trash receptacle usage and increasing the frequency of those services as needed over the course of this calendar year. The plan is to stick with the original work plan in terms of the service frequencies, but which again are the pan and broom twice a month, and then we do typically, and it sounds like this will be the case this fall, when there are events at the football stadium and or any larger events on campus, we tend to add a pan and broom after some of those large events to make sure that the district is clean. So that's how we average that 2 to 3 times a month in terms of that pan and broom service. The tree lighting will be replaced sort of that August-September timeframe for the coming 12-month period. The snow contract, we're actually just an update there. We're in the process of rebidding the district snow contract. This last season, winter season, was the 3rd and final season of that contract. So we to be determined if the district will have a different vendor or not for the coming season. And as you can surmise, we don't yet have the pricing for the new contract yet, but we expect to have the new contract in place in September for the coming winter season. We've also definitely been paying attention to graffiti removal. Certainly there has been some activity in the district in terms of, just protests and things like that. So we wanted to make sure that we're in there proactively as soon as those activities have concluded to try to address any graffiti that might be in the right of way. Any questions, comments on the 2021 work plan?
Mike, this is Randall. I'm just curious. I don't know if it's appropriate now, but I just got a few questions.
So Randall, the public comment period, unfortunately, is we can reopen it at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I was just curious what your process was. I've just got a few questions. So.
Yeah. So happy to answer them. But why don't we do this? Assuming we have time at the end of the group's action here, where we can be more than happy to reopen the public comment period and answer any of the questions.
Yeah, I didn't know that during the original part there it was an issue, so I didn't want to interrupt with public comments forward until we had gotten to the various details. So I only had about 3 questions. So.
Yeah. So we'll happy to come back to him, Randall.
Okay, good.
The public
All
comment.
right, move on then. Okay.
Board members, any questions about 2021? Otherwise, we can move on to the draft 2022 work plan. All right. Again, no action item required on that. So included in the packet was also a draft 2022 budget. So this is the meeting where we're looking for the budget recommendation for the coming year, for meaning 2022 calendar year. Draft budget was included, as is our practice in preparing the draft budget, which is by no means set in stone. Very much draft, subject to today's conversation and recommendation from the advisory board. We do go back and look at the year most recently completed to see if there's any adjustments that are warranted in terms of the suggested budget amounts. You will see that I have suggested a slight increase from 80,000 to 82,000 on the line item for sidewalk snow services. Although I think we can drop the tree lighting item by 2,000. Again, this is based on actual costs from year end last year. So budgetarily, it would be a wash. Keeping litter management at 80,000 seemed to be appropriate, recognizing that last year, while services were lower, This year, obviously the hope and aspiration is that pedestrian volumes return to normal, especially with students returning to campus this fall. And more people just out in general. So not suggesting any change in the either the line item or the scope of work proposed for next year. And similarly with the streetscape maintenance and repair, the $12,000 placehold seemed to be appropriate. So with that, these service charges, the budget would be $196,000, which is status quo to your original 2021 budget. However, because we do not have a deficit to apply, the total service charges in this budget would drop by over $12,000 from 2021 down to $196,000. So just to say that again, in 2021 we had a net deficit from 2019 that we needed to recoup. So that's why we can maintain a status quo budget and have service charges match that budget amount because there is no deficit. So again, this is, can't do the math fast enough, approximately an 8% decrease in service charges that would be conveyed to the property, all the contributing properties in lower service charges for calendar year 2022 under this budget. I could have started with this, but the typical approach we have taken this year, just recognizing the economic impact of the pandemic and the civil unrest in a number of districts, is we've really tried to come in with no increased budget drafts for board discussion, just recognizing the economic impact that the last 16, 18 months have had on businesses. So that's why you see us presenting a status quo draft budget rather than any significant modifications. Questions, comments, thoughts on the draft 2022 budget?
Yeah, I'd like to start off there. What happened to the discussion we had about adding tree lighting to our sides of the street on 13th? Because there was talk previously you were supposed to be looking into bidding that out to add that to this year's budget. I don't see that on here, and you're talking about reducing the spending on the tree lighting.
Yep, so great question, Brian. So we did work informally with an electrical contractor to get a better sense of the pricing to introduce an electrical system on the west, I'll call it the west side of 13th. The cost was approximately $90,000 to $100,000 to add electrical services, expand the SSD electrical system to that block base. So that is something we can absolutely, if that is the desire of the advisory board, to have a conversation about. The one nuance there is that we're still doing a little bit of research on this, and Brian, I might look to you to see if you have any historical records, but right now we don't have any information suggesting that the properties on the west side of the street were originally assessed the capital assessment when the electrical system was installed back in the mid-90s. So because of that, presumably the default position would be that the capital cost to expand the electrical system would have to be a property owner cost. And then once the system's in place, it would transition to an SSD cost. And that is exactly what happened in the 90s when the original system was put in, is there was a capital assessment imposed on all of the contributing properties. Now, you may have other information that suggests that if you know, I mean, I realize we're going back a little bit.
Clarification there. Are you asking me if I know we were assessed a capital cost, or you don't have a record of it working for the city? I think the city would have a record of that. I don't know offhand.
Okay, so the city, because the original capital assessment has basically termed out, it expired because all the assessments were imposed. The city's record keeping policy is that it only keeps it for a couple of years after the final year of the assessment. So the city we haven't been able to find any records within the city because it may be old records are kept by policy. So I was saying you might, sometimes properties have, candidly old boxes of stuff that may indicate if the property was assessed. There aren't a lot of indications to suggest that it was in the two properties or however what the property configuration was at the time. It doesn't suggest that it was part of the original enhanced streetscape project. In part because some of the other streetscape elements don't extend to that block.
Okay. Now, what about the other piece of that discussion? You had mentioned that this may be cost prohibitive, and you had said that there could be an option for us to provide the power to the street.
That is another option, and that is certainly something we have done in other areas where a private property owner has provided the electrical supply, and the service district can partner with that property owner to put things like tree lighting, on the trees in the public right of way. That is a partnership model that we have absolutely done in the past and could do here.
So we would definitely be interested with that. If it's going to be if it's going to cost $100,000 to run a wire underneath the road, I don't think, as a member of this board, I don't think anybody on the board should approve that. But since we are being assessed for the tree lighting, we do want to partake in that, and we would want to move forward with having the electrical circuit set out to our trees so that you guys can maintain the lights on there.
Okay. We can absolutely do that. So I think we could.
And I would like to see that as part of 2022, as I've been discussing this is the third year that I brought this up.
Yep. Candidly, we could do it this fall if we can get power there fast enough. So that could, assuming there's concurrence from the other board members to do that, that would be could be an SSD expense again as soon as this year, because we already have a line item for tree lighting and I have a tree lighting program. Any thoughts from other board members on the idea of a partnership with the property owner on the west side of the street?
I think if they're being charged and not getting it seems a little unfair. And the more lights, the better, given all the robberies that have been occurring here lately.
Lynn and Mark, any thoughts? Well, Brian, we can certainly work with you offline and figure out the best way to most effective way to get power to those tree locations. And if we can move as fast as your schedule allows. But to get lighting on those trees, I don't hear any opposition to the district partnering with Riverton to do that, as quickly as can be done.
So for feasibility, you would just need one circuit coming out to one of the trees, and then they could run extension cords between the trees like they do in the rest of the neighborhoods. I'm assuming you wouldn't need more than one circuit.
I think we'd have to, let's talk about that offline, because typically we do need more than one circuits, because your district uses incandescent lights, which puts a much heavier load on the trees. And in some cases, yes, we are able to run extension cords from sort of pole to pole or tree to pole and so forth. We'll have to evaluate the feasibility of that on your stretch, in part just to, there's just issues with the span that we're running and things like that. So it's a little easier to kind of figure those things out in the field, I guess. But assuming we can figure out a way, I don't know why, to do it safely and not cause any problems for the safety of the public. I don't see why we couldn't proceed with sort of offline conversations. That work? And we can make sure, we're not talking about that many trees, so we can make sure we've got enough lighting material to do that as well. So that I don't foresee an issue there, at least as of right now. Yeah, I'm looking at a Google Street View. Couple things we need to think about though is the span the closer we get to 4th Street in order to get power over there. I don't know if the new building has any power on the outside. So there's just some things like that we could figure out. So.
Yeah.
Anything else on that item? Otherwise, we can move forward with that based on this conversation. Anything else on coming back to the draft 2022 budget? So again, this assumes status quo in terms of the existing service frequencies for the variety of services that the district provides.
Any guess on increases in the snow contract?
Not at this point.
Okay.
I'd be completely speculating. So I can say at this point, vendors have not reached out to us and said, hey, expect a 10% increase or 15 or something like that. Sometimes we get a little bit of that sort of industry intel. We have not at this point received information like that. So
I have a question. This is Lynn.
please.
Is this the time where we would discuss, where I would make a suggestion or comment about one of these numbers changing?
Yes.
And if I'm out of line, please correct me, but the litter management is a pretty big issue on 14th Avenue. And I know we've all seen it, and we know that it's happening pretty intensely between 4th Street and 5th Street. And so I understand about the pan and broom. In years past, however, we had business owners who were more visible and seemed to be more conscientious about, keeping up the sidewalks. I think there's also a certain problem that we have, a situation with empty buildings and of course the street people. But last night I almost took pictures. It was, I mean, I could have, the litter was just intense. And it was especially intense between 4th and 5th. I mean, it was like piles of paper. And I don't know, trying to get together or to communicate and literally try to enforce the other owners and business owners to participate. I don't know how effective I could be as a business owner, given what I'm seeing in my availability of time. So I'm wondering if this group is interested in maybe increasing some of the sidewalk cleaning, because it's just gross. And with the kids coming back to school and the parents and the activities that we all want to see, that we're all excited about. I mean, 14th Avenue is just a shame and a pity. Last night it was especially bad on the the east side, pretty much starting at Goldie's all the way down to TCF. It was just piles of crap. And the only area that was clean was in front of Blarney, and the rest of it was just a mess. And it wasn't even after bar. It was about 11 p.m. when I left. So I want to just put that out there. I'm sure other people are seeing it. I know Randall's seen it, and I know some of you aren't on 14th, but what's happening after 9 p.m., of course, is dubious. And what the streets look like day in and day out, whether it's bar close or 10 in the morning, it just continues.
Yeah,
Anybody
I'll agree with that.
notice
It's on 13th too. It's not as bad on 13th, but every morning, 13th, you come in, it's just trash everywhere in our grounds.
Yeah.
We don't actually pay for the trash pickup piece of it, but it is definitely an issue in the neighborhood.
It was really bad last night. Like I said, I could have sent pictures. I take a lot of pictures of the late night activity because I've had issues. There's a lot of people loitering, and I know this is not the time and the place, and I'm working a little more closely with, Randall, and we talked to the city and we talked to Marcy Holmes and so on and so forth about, what we can do, to deal with our security issues. But frankly, I haven't had any robberies or break-ins or property damage except one broken window. But what I'm seeing on the street is just absolutely gross. And I think it's gone kind of beyond what it used to be a couple of years ago. I think the last time we had a meeting with Irv, Irv was constantly on this particular topic, and he did a little more daytime policing and talking to other property owners. But right now, there's very few of us that are actually present in that whole stretch of 14th, and probably, as I've heard, 13th is bad. But wow, it's very depressing, and I think it's a bad direction. And I'm certainly willing to talk to people, but I don't think that I can actually enforce it. And I am not in a position to pay my staff to do it. Maybe I'm in a better position to add it to my taxes. And so I'm proposing that we actually consider a more frequent street cleaning. I'm sorry, pan and broom. And I don't know that I can tell this group how to implement it, but it needs to be more frequent than it is right now. And I personally would, even though my business is struggling, this just seems like it's going to hurt us. I think the students will still come to Dinkytown. The parents will still come. There'll still be sports events, but I think over the longer haul, the long run, the long term, we all know Dinkytown is getting a reputation that's not so safe. The whole neighborhood, the whole city is not feeling very safe. So I'm not saying that it's just us, but we all know it's not the same. So that's something I would propose, is an increase to the pan and broom.
Well, Lynn, what level would be satisfactory for this? Because our pan and broom, according to the paperwork here that they sent out, is 2 times a month. And this trash use it's daily. I mean, you'd have to do this twice daily to keep up on the trash.
Well,
2 times a month is not, you can't let trash blow around,
No, I agree. And that's why me looking at it, making this comment, I knew it was like, kind of, there's a big gap here. I realize that, but I would suggest just shooting from the hip that once a week would be better than 2 times a month. And then I have a meeting actually with my, the neighborhood organization meeting today, also with, we are now part of, the DBA is now part of Marcy Homes, and we're all meeting today with the other group, which is called the Greater Dinkytown Initiative. And if we can come up with some more good ideas, I'm certainly going to work on that. But I see this as something that just requires a few more dollars. And I don't, if I had staff, I would certainly get out there and have my staff do the whole block. But as we all know, it's hard to get staff. So even though I want to hire people, there's nobody to hire. And I'm sure you follow that line of logic, at least the restaurant owners. There's nobody to hire.
So maybe just a couple.
I vote for putting more money at it, and I vote for it being at least weekly.
If it's helpful for context, Stadium Village does once a week pan and broom beginning of March through the end of November. In some cases extends that into December. And then drops it to 1 or 2 times a month in those sort of deep winter months, and then picks that frequency back up to 1 time a week. So for budgeting purposes, they budget a frequency of 40 times throughout the calendar year. And currently in this draft budget, we're budgeting for 20 times. So if it's helpful context, if that were a model you wanted this group wanted to replicate, we would need to increase the litter management line item by approximately $5,000 based on current pricing. So it's about $250. Current pricing is $250 per pan and broom for the entire district.
Is once a week going to be enough to make a difference, or are we just spending money and it's still going to look bad most of the time?
So I think
I know the public comment is not right now, but this is Kent with Raising Canes, and I've got obviously having locations in Stadium Village and Dinkytown. Can I put a comment in on this?
Yeah, if we could have the board discuss it and then allow others, and I'm not trying to quash conversation. I just we're happy to reopen the conversation. We just worry about the board being able to get everything it needs to get done. members' thoughts on the frequency of matching Stadium Village? So do you want to go up to double the frequency from 20 times a year to 40 times from a budgetary perspective? And Jeff, to your question, so we have a number of districts that do once a week pan and broom. We certainly have some that do 2 and 3 times a week in the summer months pan and broom. So I would, while recognizing the budget impacts, going to once a week, at least in those non-winter months, seems like it certainly would be an appropriate sort of next step. And it's certainly something the group could continue to evaluate in the coming years. So just if that's helpful, but we can do it once a week or twice a week. I mean, that's a service we can easily adjust.
As far as the cost, Michael, you said from 250 to 500, but annually we're budgeting 80,000. So are we talking about going to 160,000?
No.
You're
I'm
talking
sorry,
about per business.
individual line item for pan and broom. So of that 80,000, 5,000 of that is in your budget earmarked for pan and broom service. So it would be doubling that. So 20 frequency, a frequency of 20 times throughout the year is $5,000 from a budgetary perspective. So that would go, that line item for litter management, in order to go to 40 times a year from a budgetary perspective, would need to go from 80,000 to 85,000 to cover that.
Yeah, I'd say that's worth a shot. We see if it makes a difference.
And I
Yeah.
see this point, we don't know that it's going to be enough, and I of course it's not going to be enough, but I'm willing to, step it up myself. I realize I occupy a prominent corner. I can go a little bit down, which is what I'm trying to do. We can talk about it at the meeting I'm having today with my colleagues. If there's anything we can do in terms of a communication with other business owners, that's something I'm willing to step up. And I'm sure that my colleagues, my other business owners who might be guests here at this meeting would do the same. It's just I'd say, let's try once a week. I'm not sure we really need it in March. I heard you say something about March. I would say it's pretty snowy in March, and I don't know that we need it in March. So that's the only comment I would have.
Yeah, part of why we tend to start with March. Some Marches, you're right, are quite snowy, and it isn't needed, especially with the snow removal services that the district provides. On the other hand, in some cases, snow really starts, accumulation tapers off in March, and we're kind of right into sort of spring pedestrian volumes, or at least we start to get there. So that's why some number of districts start in March. So.
And what are the months again, please?
Let me be clear. It can be whatever you want. I was suggesting from a budgetary perspective, you go from 20 pan and brooms a year to 40. That might be an easier way to think about it. And then we can adjust the, whether it's starting on April 1 and going a little later in the year to kind of coincide with the football season. So there's a couple ways to do it.
Okay, I support that, and I would support doing something slightly different that is more specific to our area. So I vote for the increase.
Okay. Thoughts on increasing the litter management, Jeff and Mark?
That's fine.
Okay. Mark, any thoughts? So that, I don't hear him. So that would increase the draft budget from 196,000 to 201,000. Are there, I'll come back to a question I have after we conclude the 2022 budget. Any other thoughts on 2022? I'm hearing consensus on there's an okay to increase that. Any other questions, comments about 2022 budget? Would someone like to make a motion to that the advisory board recommends adoption of the 2022 budget and work plan recommendation as amended?
I would make a movement for that. I'll move to approve it as amended with the additional litter management.
Very good. Is there a second?
I second it.
Good. Any further conversation on the motion to adopt the budget recommendation as amended? If not, I will call the roll. So again, board members, please indicate how you'd like to be recorded as voting on the motion. Jeff Ashland,
Yay.
Brian Duffy,
Yeah,
Mark Edwards. We lose Mark? I lost Mark. Lynn Nyman.
Yay.
Okay, we do still have a quorum, so that budget recommendation is adopted as amended. So thank you. My question on the pan and broom service frequency, coming back to 2021, we do have the ability, we could increase that frequency now. You would be spending into that that surplus, but you do have resources that you could increase that pan and broom frequency to weekly now this year. We could turn it on as soon as next week, for example. Thoughts on that? No obligation to. I just want to make sure the board understands you have the option of it, increasing that service frequency right now.
I support that.
Other thoughts?
I think it's a good idea.
Jeff?
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so with that, we will increase pan and broom services to one time per week, effective next week. Any preferences on how long to continue that? Do you want to go through the end of October, the end of November, or the end of the year? We wouldn't suggest discontinuing it sooner than that, I guess. I would go through at least October 31.
I support October 31.
Concurrence? Brian, Jeff?
Yeah, sure.
Would we go to a less frequency then? Because November, I would still think we'd want some cleanups.
We could drop back down to the 2 per month that were originally budgeted for this year.
Okay.
We wouldn't drop off. It wouldn't stop. It would just go from effectively 4, if you will, 4 or 5 a month to 2 a month. So
I don't recall exactly much how November differs from the others. If you suggest that we should go to the end of November, excuse me, end of November, I would support that. Was it you, Brian? I'm not sure who made the suggestion or the comment.
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
I just said that was Jeff that made that comment.
Got it.
I think it's worth the money to go through November. I mean, it's a couple $100.
Okay, we will do that. We will go. Hearing consensus, we will increase pan and broom to one time per week through November 30th of this year, and those costs will be reflected in the final 2021 budget and expense report. All right, we have concluded the main items of the budget, or the main items that we wanted to talk about. As promised, we do still have some time, so we can reopen the public comment period if that's the board's wishes. Before we do that, I would note that a couple of board administration items. If you have not completed your online ethics training course, please do so. It takes 20 to 30 minutes. You can do it at your convenience, so it's not a scheduled time piece. We can resend you the link. It is good for 4 years. Once you do it. So if we could ask you, if you haven't done it yet or within the last 4 years, please jump on and do that. Any other business the group would like to discuss, and any concerns with reopening the public comment period?
No.
No, I'm comfortable with everything as is.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for the budget recommendation. So just to recap, all prior years, that budget recommendation will be incorporated into a proposed operating plan for 2022. That will be mailed to all contributing properties in September, along with the public hearing notice and the proposed service charge amount for their property or properties. There will then be a public hearing before the City Council Transportation and Public Works Committee that will occur in the first half of October. And then presuming it is adopted by the City Council, we would commence with service implementation in January, just like we have every year. So just wanted to recap that process of what occurs after this. If there's nothing else, we can return and reopen the public comment. Thank you all for your patience in allowing the board to get through its agenda today. Randall, I believe you had some questions. Happy to go through, and Kent,
Yeah.
happy to answer any questions you have as well. And anybody else?
Mike, just quickly, mine was like on the graffiti subject. So who decides? Who walks around and looks for graffiti? Who does that? How does the special services district get advised there's graffiti someplace needs to be removed?
Yep. So what we do is we have an SSD Streetscape maintenance contractor who is tasked with going through the district on a set frequency, and if they see graffiti, which is twice a month currently, twice a month, that's what the budget has. So they proactively go through the district, and any graffiti that is in the public right of way, again, not on private property or buildings or fencing of around parking lots, things like that. But if it's in the public right of way, the contractor is responsible for abating that graffiti at the time they're walking through the district. Another way it sometimes occurs is we will get 311 complaints, but that is infrequent. Usually we're removing it before a 311 comment comes in.
Yeah, I mean, I was just curious because I personally was contacted 311 multiple times. And so I'm just kind of curious. So who, for instance, right now, I just told them there's graffiti on the two bridges, 14th and 4th. And so who pays for that? Does that come out of our budget, the SSSD budget?
If it's within the service district and visible, to the street, it is a service that the service district can incur costs to provide the maintenance of. It is, it's the bridge itself is owned by MnDOT, so technically they're responsible, but historically the service district has said that's a cost it's willing to incur.
So the fact that I reported this 2 weeks ago, when they do it, because I do get follow-up emails if they got it on the schedule, then the special service district is going to get billed for it. Is that right?
Not necessarily, Randall. Sometimes, so graffiti is handled by multiple divisions within the city. The service district, we have an approach that is comprehensive to the district. Solid waste and recycling also has graffiti abatement. So if you reported to 311, if it didn't come to us, it went to solid waste and recycling. In that case, that is not an expense to the district if solid waste and recycling takes on that task and issues the work order. It is done just as part of the regular budget of solid waste and recycling division.
Okay, and then regarding graffiti that's on people's businesses, that's their responsibility, and if you report it to 311, then they contact the owner, et cetera, right?
That's our understanding, yes.
Okay, because I've done that more than once, Fortunately, I got good contacts with some of them. I've had the graffiti taken off that old U.S. Bank building about 5 times, so, but anyway, the other one was streetlights. I was just kind of curious. Did I not hear that the contractor's supposed to put Christmas lights up and then take them down? Right? Is that what they do?
Yes, on trees that have SSD power to them, twinkle lights are added and they're replaced once a year. Yes.
Well, we might want to chat with those folks because the lights in front of my place, as far as I can tell, they're there all year round, and I'm not real complimentary about the wires hanging down. It looks kind of tacky. So, just might be something. If we're paying a contractor to do that, they might need to be nudged a little bit, do a little bit better job. And then the whole subject of streetlights, I was surprised you said that they're all incandescent lights. The whole world is going LED. Why are we going with incandescent lights? In fact, you don't even need power for them. Put up a solar panel. I mean, I got lights all over my place. My house, they run all night long. You know, it's gotten so simple. It's why spend all that big money for AC current when it's dangerous and it's high voltage when you can just do solar powered LED lights.
Solar LED, are you talking about the twinkle lights on the trees, Randall?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's street
I got a
lights.
lot of
Well,
lights. Yeah. But I'm just saying, just a thought. You guys can think about that. But I don't know why anybody would put incandescent lights up for decorative on trees when you should just do LEDs and use
Yeah,
solar panels, and you don't have to use for them.
appreciate the comment. While we are always receptive to people recommending products and strategies to us, the service district experience in Minneapolis with LED solar powered LED lights on trees and is for holiday decor is left most districts wanting, and they've abandoned the approach because it does not provide for reliably consistent power supply when people want the lights on. The technology just hasn't.
I understand. I mean, I've been messing with LED lights for 10, 15 years, and things have changed a lot. I don't have an incandescent bulb left in my businesses. Everything's LED. But anyway, just comment. That's all.
Yeah, I would also add. Sorry, Randall, go ahead.
I just say it's just something to think about, And then the last thing I would just reinforce what Lynn said on trash. Up in our end of the street, I'm across the street from Lynn. I think both of us do it. We're pretty fussy. I don't allow trash in front of my place. We pick it up. She picks up her stuff. I just don't know why others don't do it, but it's pretty rough once you go down towards past 4th to 5th. I don't know why they get all that trash attention, and maybe it's just because we get it too, but we pick it up, But I would say this, I would ask the board to consider, you sure got a lot of gum damage on your sidewalks down there. I don't hardly have any up at my end because we just don't allow it and we clean it off. But the sidewalks are just covered with gum, and don't know why people like throwing their gum on the sidewalk, but it's just an observation. I have to concur with what Lynn said. It's pretty rough going down towards 5th Street on 14th. It looks bad, both sides of the street repeatedly. So I don't have an answer. I as a business owner, I'm not kind of surprised that more people just don't go pick up their trash, but they don't, we do.
So just
that's
one
really
comment. So the district has had just so everybody's clear on the LED tree lighting conversation. That is a conversation that the board has discussed several times over the last several years. And the advice, at least historically from the advisory board, was to not incur the cost of going to LED. So that is not a city imposed decision. In fact, we have several districts that have gone LED for their tree lighting. So I just want everybody to understand the district has the option of converting to LED tree lighting. And we, given enough time, that is something we can implement. It is more expensive on the front end, but it tends to be less expensive over the course of time because we can get multiple seasons typically out of an LED stringer. We did do a pilot on 5th Street where we have LED lights on a couple of trees to see how it worked and what people thought of the lighting quality. So it is something the district, based on prior recommendations, have suggested. I'll describe it as sort of tiptoeing into it, but it is in the past when we've had the conversation, mainly I perceive due to the cost, the request was to stay with incandescents. Just want everybody to be clear on why incandescents continue to be used in this district. That it's likely too late. Pardon me, Randall. Just a thought. It is likely too late in the year to order LEDs for this coming season based on the quantities, but it is certainly something if the board wanted us to to go LED in 2022 with that replacement, it's certainly something we could implement. So just again for board discussion. Sorry, Randall, go.
Just a quick question. Yeah, I didn't pay for any of my lights. I got money back from the power company. I don't know if that type of stuff is available to this type of function or not. Might be. You know, Xcel Energy, they paid for all my lights.
We're happy to, if anybody has information about an Xcel Energy program for LED seasonal decor, please send it to us. If there's, we're very good at accepting grants. If someone is aware of a way.
Yeah, if there's free money out there, get some. Okay, that's all the questions I had.
Very good, Randall. Thank you. Kent.
Yeah, I just had two things I wanted to put in. I know from my experience in City and Village, even with the increased kind of sweeping of the neighborhood, it's still, the trash piles up really fast. I know that if we're not out there daily, it turns into it gets out of hand pretty quickly. But I do appreciate the increase to once a week. That's huge. That's a big one. Good job, board, on that one. And then also with the kind of all the security issues, I was surprised there was no conversation about the installation and maintenance of an area-wide security system, personnel, somebody that walks around, something kind of in that manner. If I remember correctly, that is, there's provision and coordination of security personnel to supplement the regular city personnel, is something that the SSD is able to use their budgeting money from. That would just be something to look at in the future.
Right.
Mike, sorry, I do have one last question. It had to do with streetlights because when Kent mentioned it, it triggered in my head. Who's supposed to paint those things or keep them up? Because some of them look really rough right now.
So that is the traffic divisions. The primary responsible party is the traffic division within Public Works. And they have a sort of a, as we understand it, they have sort of a multi-year plan as funds are available to go through and sort of refurbish streetlight poles. It is something that the service district, if it wanted to, doesn't have the obligation to, but if it wanted to, some districts have taken it upon themselves and included in their own budget the cost to refurbish their light poles.
Yeah, my question was spurred by the fact when I was walking in front of Blarney's the other day, I noticed that there's a couple of temporary lights. They're stuck in concrete bases sitting on the sidewalk, and right next to it was one of the original street lights, which looked like it was about ready to fall over. I was just kind of curious what was going on there, because we have had a couple of street lights in the district just fall over. Well, because they're rotting off at the base, they're rusting. So, and then I'm really surprised that the street people haven't figured out that the bases of those things are not bolted on, and they could just steal them and take them to the aluminum scrap guy and probably get a buck for them, because they are really bad. I don't know, maybe we should push on the city about updating or accelerating their plan, because the lights look pretty rough around there. That's all.
So yeah, again, traffic division would be the responsible party. Those lights do go back to the mid 90s, the low level lighting. That's when the existing enhanced streetscape was put in place, per the information we have. So that, I mean, that all could be a service district cost, based on the dollars involved. My sense is that the reason it hasn't come up to replace those as part of the service district is just the cost involved. So, and the temporary light poles, that project on that block is beginning, and I know we removed some streetscape elements from the envelope of that project that's going to be occurring on the McDonald's, the liquor store, and the strip mall block. So I'm completely speculating here, but that may be why some of that temporary light pole items are out there, Randall. But just a total guess. I don't know for certain.
My assumption was the light pole right in front of Mike's place, Barney's, was so bad they had turned it off and they put some temporaries in. That was just my assumption. They're not really positioned where the construction is yet, you know. So just my speculation too. It just seemed like they had a broken light pole, so they put up a temporary one.
One thing to note, we will reach out to the streetscape vendor. We do periodically in the summer go through the district and adjust any tree lighting as necessary. So we've made a note, and we'll contact the vendor in case there are any adjustments that need to be made to the tree lighting. That's something we do anyways, but we'll just make sure it happens the next couple weeks. Any other comments?
You know, since we're paying for services, Mike, and people are walking around occasionally, is there some contact point that if we see something, we should send it to them, or should we talk to the city? What's your?
Yeah, all our vendors are instructed to receive information, but not to implement any information from the field. We do that to protect the cost to the district. So by far, whether it's anybody on this call or anybody else in the community, please direct any comments to Andy, David, and myself. Any of us, we're all available. Email, call, text, all are sufficient. And we will direct the right vendor, assuming it's a service district item, to take care of it. If it's a general city thing, we strongly encourage the use of 311 because there is an existing system within the city to track those work items. But by all means, anybody should not hesitate. Everybody should feel free to reach out to any of the three of us or all of us if there are questions, comments, concerns about services within the district. Anything else? All right. Hearing none, I think we can adjourn this meeting. Appreciate everyone's time. We will, no meeting is set at this point for the next meeting, but we can, please know that, as I just said, we are always available and frequently in the district. So if any issues pop up, we can take care of them. And Brian, we will certainly work with you and your staff offline to see if we can implement that tree lighting partnership on the west side of 13th, either for this coming season or at some point next year. So with that, thank you, everyone. Enjoy your summer, and we'll be in touch. Let us know if anything pops up in the meantime.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.